The time has come, my friends, for the dessert recipe that everybody loves. Plain and simple chocolate cake. But this chocolate cake is low carb, sugar-free, gluten-free, diabetic-friendly, keto-friendly, easy, and absolutely delicious. And if you want a printable version of it, then check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find a printable version of this and other goodies there for you. Also, stick around to the end of the video, and I'm going to show you a neat, creative, easy way to decorate your cakes that takes no time at all. And if you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the little notification bell. That way you could be notified every time I put out a new video. And while we do that, let's get cooking.
Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Spray and line an 8-inch circle cake pan. In a large mixer bowl, combine 1½ cup almond flour, 1½ cups monk fruit sweetener or sweetener of your choice, 3/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 tablespoon baking powder, and a ½ teaspoon of xanthan gum. You need this for your binding agent, so do not leave this out. Your cake can crumble without it. Whisk these together until they're fully combined. Make sure you whisk them really well because cocoa powder has a tendency to bunch up on you and get clumpy, so you want to make sure there's no clumps at all in there. So make sure you really get in there and whisk it good. Add 1½ cups of hot water. And yes, it needs to be hot. I just turn on my tap water and get it nice and hot. It doesn't have to be boiling water, but you do want it to be hot water. You want it to be able to dissolve the cocoa powder and make it nice and creamy. So make sure the water is hot. Whisk the hot water in all together until the mixture is nice and smooth. Add 3 large room temperature eggs. Make sure they are room temperature. They mix in a whole lot easier when they're room temperature. I say this pretty much every recipe and I'm going to keep saying it. Room temperature eggs. Whisk the eggs into the mixture until the yolks are completely combined with everything and you do not see any streaks of any of the eggs. Make sure it's fully and completely combined. Add 6 tablespoons of butter that's been melted and cooled. Make sure it's completely cool. Whisk it in until it's fully combined. Add 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. This will help with the rising of the cake. And a ½ teaspoon of vanilla extract. Again, whisk it all together until it's fully combined and there's no streaks of any ingredients. It's all one big chocolate batter. Let the batter sit for about 2 minutes so it can get a little bit thick. Low carb batters, especially when you have to add binding agents like the xanthan gum, they need a little bit of time so the binding agent can absorb the moisture and can start becoming active. So you do need to let it sit for just a couple minutes just so that xanthan gum and the flours can all absorb the moisture and the batter can get just a little bit thick. It's not going to be a super thick batter, it's going to be a light batter, but you do want it to get a little bit thick. And pour the batter into the prepared cake pan. Make sure it's nice and even on top. Use a spatula if you need to, or tilt the pan from side to side. This is going to fill up the pan quite a bit, almost to the edge. So make sure you pour carefully because you don't want to spill or overflow. Pop it into the oven and bake 55 to 60 minutes. Now this is a thicker cake, so it is going to take a longer time to cook. If you want a smaller cake, then you can always cut this recipe in half and then put your batter into the 8-inch pan and cook it for about 30 to 35 minutes. Or you can divide the batter into 2 8-inch circle pans and bake 30 to 35 minutes. But if you're doing the recipe all together like we are here, it does need to cook for 50 to 60 minutes for it to get done all the way through. And you want to make sure that you test it with a toothpick or a cake tester and make sure that that comes out clean. After it's cooked, let it cool for about 10 minutes. Then use a butter knife or a small spatula and loosen the sides of the cake. Make sure you go slowly and carefully because you don't want to tear the sides of the cake. It can be a little bit delicate when it's still hot. After you've loosened the sides, let it cool in the pan for 1 hour. Do not try to remove it until it has cooled for at least an hour. Low-carb cakes can be very delicate while they're hot, so if you try to remove it from the pan while it's still hot, it can and probably will fall apart on you. So make sure you let it cool in that pan for at least an hour. Once it's done cooling, use your spatula or butter knife and make sure the sides are still nice and loose. And very carefully tilt the pan upside down onto a wire rack or a serving platter. If you're going to frost it, then you want to let it cool completely on a wire rack before you frost it. You don't want to try to frost it when there's any warmth in it, so make sure you let it cool completely before you frost it. The cake might sink slightly in the middle while it cools. It's okay. It's not going to make a huge difference, especially if you do put frosting on it. No one's going to be able to tell the difference. It's not going to be a drastic sinkhole, so don't worry if it sinks a little bit. It's okay. Most cakes do that. If you're not going to frost it, you could put it on a serving platter and serve it as it is or decorate it however you choose. Now, I am not a cake decorator at all. In fact, I am horrible when it comes to decorating cakes. But I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to decorate your cake that actually looks like you took a lot of time on it, but it takes very, very little effort. In fact, it takes less than 5 minutes to do. All you need to do is take a large piece of lace or a doily and place it over the top of your cake. Yes, I know this sounds really strange, but trust me, we're getting somewhere and it's going to be good. Then put some powdered swerve or powdered sweetener of your choice into a sieve or a mesh strainer. Lightly tap and sprinkle the powdered swerve all over the lace. You want to be pretty generous with your powdered swerve or powdered sweetener, whatever you're using. You want to be pretty generous with it because you want the designs of the lace to come through onto your cake. So keep tapping it until it is generously covered with powdered swerve or powdered sweetener. I usually use about 1/4 of a cup, give or take a little bit, just enough for it's generously over the lace. I actually borrowed this idea from Bigger Bolder Baking. She has a lot of great baking tips, so if you've never visited her website or YouTube channel, she's an awesome baker. You want some good tips? There are awesome tips there. Once you've generously sprinkled the lace with the powdered swerve, gently lift the lace and voila, magic! A beautiful design appears. Quick and easy way to decorate your cake, and that looks like you took a lot of time on it. It's beautiful. Now, if you do want to frost the cake instead of using the powdered swerve method, I'll put a couple links in the description to my buttercream frosting and my 3-ingredient frosting. Printable versions of the recipes are both on my website. But in the meantime, you have a lovely chocolate cake here, so eat and enjoy. Here's a quick recipe of a quick frosting that will go great with this cake. In a large mixer bowl, place 1 cup of room temperature butter. Make sure it is softened a little bit, not melted, but you want it soft enough to where it will mix smoothly. If you put it in there ice cold, it will not mix properly and you'll have chunky frosting. And you don't want that, so make sure it's softened just a bit. So room temperature is great. Beat the butter on medium for about 2 minutes or until it's light and fluffy. Add 1 3/4 cup of sugar-free sweetened condensed milk. Make sure it's chilled a bit. Put it in the refrigerator for about 2 hours, or better yet, overnight is really the best way, but If you're in a hurry, you can just chill it for about 2 hours. As long as it's cold, it whips up better if it's cold. And add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Mix these on medium until they're thoroughly combined, which takes about 1 minute to get it all beat up until it's nice and fluffy. If you can't find sugar-free condensed milk in the store, it can be a little bit hard to find. I'll put a link in the description to my video about how to make sugar-free sweetened condensed milk, and I'll also put a link in the video to my website that has the printable recipe of how to make sugar-free sweetened condensed milk. And there you have it. 3-ingredient, sugar-free vanilla frosting. For a chocolate version, reduce the vanilla extract to a ½ teaspoon and mix in 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder.
And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like and the subscribe button. Leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.